In that God-forgotten red canyon, time seemed to be warped by the heat waves. Old Jesse leaned back in his rocking chair, the creaking sound keeping rhythm with his tail. The tobacco in his pipe had long gone out, but he still habitually held it in his mouth. "Kid, you ask why they call it Desperation Valley?" He squinted, his gaze passing through the grimy window of the saloon toward the distant horizon. "Because the folks there are either already dead or on their way to dying. The story I'm telling today is about one man who shouldn't have gone there, and another who shouldn't have been there." Spring came unusually late in 1878, and the winds over the Colorado Plateau still carried a knife. Edge Chill, Jack Sellerstow, that wasn't his name yet, rode a weary sorrel horse along a dried-up riverbed. His alias was Jack Horton, a bank clerk on the run for killing himself. Defense, at least, according to the files. The real mission of U.S. Marshal Henry Logan was to infiltrate the largest black market network in the West and find the mastermind known as the Shadow Serpent. 6 months earlier, a train loaded with munitions had vanished in the Rocky Mountains, and all 12 soldiers escorting it were killed. Every lead pointed to one place: Desperation Valley. "Hey, stranger, your horse is about done for." The voice came from behind a large boulder. Henry's hand instinctively moved toward his holster. But the next moment, a man stepped out of the shadows, hands spread to show he meant no harm. He looked to be in his early 30s, with a sun-bronzed face and unusually bright blue eyes, like the rare sky during the canyon's rainy season. His gear was simple and practical. A Winchester rifle slung across his back, 2 Colt revolvers on his hips, and a canteen and small bundle tied to his saddle. "I know Teresa Spring up ahead," the stranger said, nodding toward Henry's horse. "If you're willing to trust a stranger." Henry studied him. In this lawless land, kindness was often the most expensive trap. But the sorrel was indeed at its limit, panting heavily, foam gathering at its mouth. "Lead the way," Henry finally said. The stranger called himself Sam Carter. At least that's what he claimed. They rode side by side, following an almost invisible trail winding up the mountain. Half an hour later, a hidden spring indeed appeared, water seeping from a crevice in the rocks and collecting in a small pool below. "How do you know about this place?" Henry asked as his horse drank. Sam shrugged. "Live on this land long enough, you naturally learn where to find water." He took off his hat and wiped his brow. "You heading to Desperation Valley? Maybe heard Therese's work to be found there." "What kind of work?" Sam's eyes sharpened. "Any kind. I need money, and a place where no one asks too many questions." Sam smiled, a surprisingly sincere grin. "Then you've come to the right place." In Desperation Valley, there are only 2 questions. What can you do, and can you keep your mouth shut? They shared some hardtack and rested by the spring. Sam didn't say much, but every word carried weight. He knew this land intimately, where the quicksand was, where the rattlesnakes nested, which months brought sudden flash floods. Henry gradually let his guard down, or thought he did. "Travel together," Sam suggested as the sun began to set. 2 are safer than 1, especially for someone visiting Desperation Valley for the first time. Henry hesitated. As an undercover agent, he should avoid unnecessary connections. But Sam seemed like the kind of man who could survive in Desperation Valley, maybe even serve as a useful guide. "All right," he agreed. It was a decision he would revisit during countless sleepless nights. Desperation Valley wasn't a valley, but a basin hidden behind red rock walls. Here, there was no law, only rules, no mayor, only foreman, no church, but 6 saloons. 2 guards stood at the entrance, looking more like miners than gunslingers. But their eyes scanned every newcomer like instruments. "Name, origin, how long you plan to stay?" One guard said mechanically, "Jack Horton, from Kansas." "How long depends on the work I find," Henry replied. "Sam Carter." "Bringing in a new man," Sam added. The guard glanced at Sam, his eyes flashing something Henry couldn't decipher. "Carter, you sure?" "Am sure." The guard shrugged and waved them through. "Remember the rules. Settle personal disputes privately. Don't mess with the foremen. All deals go through middlemen. Break any of these, and the valley will have 1 less person." Entering Desperation Valley, Henry was stunned by what he saw. This wasn't a temporary camp, but a twisted town. Dozens of structures built from planks and canvas lined the area, even a main street flanked by various shops, gunsmiths, blacksmiths, general stores, and of course saloons. People came and went, looking no different from residents of ordinary frontier towns, except every one of them wore a gun on their hippets, more orderly than I imagined, Henry remarked. Sam chuckled softly, on the surface. Yes, remember, the order here is built on bullets. Come on, you need a place to stay. He took Henry to a small cabin at the edge of the valley. This is where I stay sometimes. You can use the other room until you find your own place. Henry tried to pay, but Sam refused. In Desperation Valley, favors are more valuable than gold. Maybe someday I'll need your help. That night, Sam took Henry to the Red Dog Saloon, the valley's largest hub for information exchange. The air was thick with the smell of cheap tobacco, sweat, and whiskey. People spoke in low tones, their eyes warily scanning each newcomer. See that man in the corner, Sam whispered, nodding toward a well-dressed man in a suit. Bookkeeper Mike. All big deals go through him. If you want work, best to get his attention. How? Show your worth, Sam said, but not too much here. Standing out too much is as dangerous as staying too hidden. Over the next few days, Henry followed Sam around, learning the lay of the land. He discovered how Desperation Valley operated, a strict hierarchy masked as a loose alliance. At the bottom were errand boys and enforcers. In the middle were various specialists, gunsmiths, forgers, smugglers, and at the top were a few bosses. Above them all was the never-seen Shadow Serpent. Has anyone ever seen him? Henry asked one evening. Sam was cleaning his pistol, his movements as natural as breathing. Some say he's an old man, some say a woman, others say he doesn't exist at all. Just a name. He looked up at Henry. In Desperation Valley, some questions are best left unasked. But Henry noticed that whenever the Shadow Serpent was mentioned, Sam's eyes became inscrutable. Was it fear, respect, or something else? A week later, Henry got his first job, escort a shipment of goods to a trading point up north. Sam was leading with 4 others. What's in the shipment? Henry asked while preparing the horses. Sam's expression turned serious. In Desperation Valley, goods are goods. Don't ask, don't look. Just make sure they arrive safely. They set out before dawn, using the darkness as cover. The goods were packed in 3 sealed wooden crates, carried by 2 pack mules. The path was treacherous, a narrow trail along cliff edges. Twice, the mules nearly lost their footing, but Sam steadied them just in time. You've done this before? Henry asked. Enough times, Sam replied tersely. On the 3rd day, they ran into trouble, not from lawmen or rivals, but from a sudden rainstorm. The mountain path turned muddy, and a small landslide blocked their way. We have to detour, Sam decided, but it'll cost us an extra day. Can the goods wait? One of the men asked. Sam looked at the sky, where dark clouds were gathering. If we get stuck here, nothing will wait. He led the group along a more dangerous but shorter route, a dried-up waterfall channel, almost vertical. They had to lower the goods and horses down with ropes. Henry brought up the rear. As he was descending last, a loose rock gave way, and he lost his balance, sliding downward. Just as he thought he was about to fall to his death, a hand grabbed his wrist. It was Sam somehow. He had climbed back up, holding Henry with one hand while gripping a crevice with the other. Hold on, Sam gritted his teeth. Henry could feel Sam's arm trembling, but he didn't let go. A few seconds later, Henry found a new foothold, and they made it down safely. You didn't have to risk that, Henry panted. Sam just patted his shoulder. I told you, in Desperation Valley, favors are more valuable than gold. That night by the campfire, Henry truly saw Sam as a friend for the first time, not just a contact in his mission. They shared hardtack and salted beef, talking about unimportant things, favorite horse breeds, the worst whiskey they'd ever tasted, the most beautiful sunset they'd seen. Why did you come to Desperation Valley, Sam? Henry finally asked. You don't seem like the others. Sam was silent for a long time, staring into the flickering flames. Everyone has their reasons. Mine are buried in the past, best left there. Henry didn't press. Everyone had secrets, especially in a place like this. After the job, Henry's standing in Desperation Valley solidified. He and Sam completed more missions together, each one successful. They became known as a duo, one cautious, one decisive, one good at planning, the other at execution. More importantly, they became friends, real friends, the kind who would share their last drop of water, who would cover each other's backs in a gunfight. Henry found himself forgetting the mission more often, enjoying this simple, direct brotherhood. In Desperation Valley, trust was a rare commodity, and they had it in each other. But the mission was still the mission. Henry regularly sent information to the outside through a complex dead drop system. Deal times, routes, participant details. He knew the day of the raid was approaching, and the evidence he'd gathered was enough to dismantle the network. The only missing piece was the Shadow Serpent's true identity. "I heard Tree's a big deal coming," Henry probed one evening. "Firearms from Mexico, worth over 100,000. Sam paused while cleaning his coat. "Where'd you hear that?" "Rumors at the saloon." "In Desperation Valley, rumors are often true," Sam said without looking up. "But some deals, the less you know, the better. Even for senior members like us." Sam finally looked up. His expression complicated, especially for us. A few days later, the foreman himself approached them. "The Shadow Serpent wants to see you." Henry's heart raced. He was finally going to meet his target. But for some reason, he looked at Sam first and saw an unreadable expression flit across his friend's face nerves. Anticipation. They were taken to a cave deep in the valley, its entrance so well hidden it seemed impossible to find. Inside was more spacious than Henry expected, converted into a fully functional command center. Maps covered one wall, papers were scattered on a desk, and there was even a telegraph machina, true luxury in such a remote area. The Shadow Serpent stood with his back to them, studying the wall map. He wore ordinary cowboy attire, nothing special. Yet he carried an air of authority. "Carter Horton," he said without turning. "I've heard much about you." His voice sounded familiar, but Henry couldn't place it. "Your work has been impressive, especially how you handled the Wild Bunch harassment." The Shadow Serpent turned around. Time seemed to freeze. Henry's heart stopped. He stared at the face, the familiar face, the blue eyes he had trusted. It was Sam, no, not Sam. It was Sam Carter, but also the Shadow Serpent. They were the same person. Sam the Shadow Serpent looked at Henry, his eyes showing no surprise, only deep weariness. "I suppose it's time you knew, Jack, or should I call you Henry? Marshal Henry Logan." Shock washed over Henry like an icy tide. Instinctively, he reached for his holster, but Sam had already raised a hand. "Easy, Henry. If I wanted you dead, you would have been dead many times over." Why was all Henry could ask. Sam knew Henry didn't know what to call him. Walked to the table and poured 2 glasses of whiskey. "Why let you live? Why let you get close?" "Because," he paused, his voice softening. "Because you're the only real friend I've had in years." Henry took the glass but didn't drink. Was any of it real? Number Sam shook his head. "The drinks we shared were real. The fights we fought were real. You saving my life was real, and me saving yours was real." He looked Henry straight in the eye. "Only our identities were false." The truth came together like pieces of a puzzle. Sam the Shadow Serpent had known Henry's true identity from the start. He had monitored Henry's every move, controlled the information he received, steered him away from the network's true secrets, but at the same time, he had protected Henry, ensured his safety, even risked becoming his friend. "That rainy night when you almost slid off the cliff," Sam said quietly, "when I caught you, there was only one thought in my mind: can't let him die. Even though I knew he was the marshal sent to destroy everything ID built. Then why didn't you kill me?" Henry's voice was hoarse. "Because I'm tired." Sam drained his glass. "Tired of the pretense. Tired of the killing. Tired of this life. Maybe deep down, I wanted someone to end it. I just didn't expect it to be you." The cave fell silent, only the faint crackle of the oil lamp breaking the quiet. "Tomorrow's deal," Henry finally said. "I've sent the information out. The law is coming. In force." Sam nodded, as if Head expected it. "I know. In fact, I made sure you got the right time and place. Why, because it's the only way out. Sam walked to the wall map and traced a finger over Desperation Valley. I built this kingdom, Henry. Now it's my prison. Tomorrow, whatever happens, will be the end. Henry felt an inexplicable anger. You could have left, you could have disappeared, and then what? Sam turned. His eyes suddenly sharp. Run forever? Hide forever? No, some fates have to be faced. He paused. But I have a request, not as the shadow serpent, but as Sam, as your friend. What request? Give me a warrior's end. Don't let me hang in a town square. Don't let my face be in the papers for people to gossip about. Henry understood. He wanted to refuse. To say this couldn't be how his mission ended. But as he looked at Sam's friend, his enemy, he saw the same weariness, the same conflict, the same longing for an end. I can't, Henry said finally. You can. Sam stepped closer, his voice almost a whisper. Tomorrow, when it all happens, give me a chance. One last chance. He didn't explain what that meant, but Henry understood. The next day's deal was at Devil's Rock, a natural amphitheater, easy to defend. Henry and Sam arrived early to scout the area. Others trickled in, about 30 men. Desperation Valley's best. The goods were 20 crates of new rifles with matching ammunition, worth over $150,000. The buyers were a rancher coalition from Texas, embroiled in a bloody range war with invading cattlemen. Everything's ready, Sam told Henry, his eyes eerily calm. The deal was set for high noon, but at 11, Henry saw the signal. A flash of light from a The deal was set for high noon, but at 11, Henry saw the signal. A flash of light from a distant ridge. The law was in position. His heart raced. In another hour, this would all be over. His mission would be complete. He'd regain his real identity, get a promotion. But Sam, you all right? Sam asked, as if reading Henry's thoughts. No, Henry said honestly. Sam gave a faint smile. Honesty always hurts, doesn't it? At 11:30, the buyers arrived. Negotiations were brief and efficient. Gold changed hands. Goods were inspected. Everything went according to plan, except for the plan itself. Just as the deal was done and both sides prepared to leave, the first shot cracked the sky. It wasn't the law, but the wild bunch, Desperation Valley's rivals, ambushing from another flank. They'd clearly gotten wind of the deal and planned to steal it. The next few minutes were pure hell. Gunshots echoed off the rocks, bullets flying everywhere. Henry and Sam fought back, as they had many times before, covering each other instinctively. 3 on the right. Henry shouted, "Sniper on the left." Sam called back. They repelled the first wave. But the wild bunch had numbers and the high ground. Men from Desperation Valley began to fall, one after another. "We need to pull back," Henry yelled at Sam. But Sam shook his head. Too late. Just then, the law's horns sounded. Dozens of marshals on horseback poured into Devil's Rock from all sides, uniforms bright, weapons ready. The wild bunch tried to flee, but were easily subdued. The remaining men from Desperation Valley raised their hands in surrender, knowing resistance was futile. It all happened so fast. Within minutes, the fight was over, leaving only Henry and Sam standing, back to back, surrounded by dozens of guns. "Drop your weapons," a voice commanded. It was Henry's superior, Marshal McCarthy. Henry slowly lowered his gun, but Sam didn't. "Sam, it's over," Henry whispered. Sam looked around, watching his kingdom crumble, his men being handcuffed. His face showed no emotion, only deep calm. "Remember my request," he murmured to Henry. "Sam, don't." But Sam had already raised his gun, not at the marshals but at the sky. "No," Marshal McCarthy shouted. "Drop it!" A gunshot rang out, but it wasn't Sam's gun. It was Henry's, back in his hand somehow. The bullet hit Sam in the right shoulder, knocking the gun from his grasp. Sam staggered, looked at Henry, his eyes holding no anger, only understanding. Then he smiled. "Thanks, brother," he whispered. Henry knew what it meant. Thanks for not letting me die by another's hand. The marshals closed in slowly. Sam stood at the center of the rock, his right arm hanging limp, blood soaking his shirt. He looked at Henry and nodded. Then, With his left hand, he drew another gun from his Buddha small, hidden revolver. No, Henry lunged forward, but it was too late. Sam the Shadow Serpent gave his friend one last look, then pressed the barrel to his temple. The gunshot echoed through Devil's Rock, then faded, leaving only the wind and the sound of breathing. Henry stood frozen, his gun still aimed at empty air. He watched Sam fall, watched the blood spread across the red rock, watched the once bright blue eyes go dim. Marshal McCarthy approached. "You did it, Logan. Mission accomplished." Henry didn't answer. He knelt beside his friend, took the already cold hand. In the final moment, Sam's lips seemed to form a word, spoken silently. Free old Jess's story was done. The saloon was quiet, only the fire crackling. What happened after? The young listener asked. The marshal, Henry Logan, what became of him? Old Jesse relit his pipe and took a deep drag. He finished his mission, got promoted, but he never went undercover again. Some say he requested a transfer to the most remote outpost. Others say he left the service entirely, but everyone agrees. From that day on, a part of him stayed forever at Devil's Rock. The young man thought for a moment. Do you think Sam the Shadow Serpent was truly a bad man? Old Jesse looked out the window, where night had fallen and stars were beginning to appear. Sun in Desperation Valley. Good and bad are as scarce as water in the desert. Sam did bad things, plenty of them, but he also protected Henry, maybe even loved him in his own way, like a brother. Maybe in the end, they both gave each other what they needed most, a clean ending. He stood up, his joints creaking. Time to close up. Remember this story. Remember that in no man's land sometimes the deepest loyalty comes from the unlikeliest friendship, and the most tragic endings are often the ones we choose for ourselves. After the young man left, old Jesse locked the door and slowly climbed the stairs. In a drawer in his bedroom, he kept two things, a worn marshal's badge and a Colt pistol, with the initials SE carved into the grip. Moonlight through the window fell on the grip, the letters seeming to whisper a story of trust, betrayal, and redemption, a story that could never be fully told. And in the distant Devil's Rock, the wind still howled, as if remembering the day that forever changed two men, and the gunshot that echoed through time.